Hello, friends. It's time for Talk for Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses in the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and today we were here with the superintendent of Fort Dodge Community Schools, Josh Porter. But before we get into that, let's do a quick market update.
Market update. Well, compared to last year, our average sales are at 163 compared to 127 last year, which is a huge increase. I think it'll even out a little bit more. We have a lot of more closings, but we don't have nearly as many pendings.
Oh, so
I don't know.
People just aren't. We've had a lot of close the last few weeks.
And it's also pending value, so maybe there was like some farmland or something that was worth millions.
Oh, yeah, they could put something in there. Yeah, that's exactly right.
But we do have 248 houses on the market compared to 211 last year.
Nice. So yeah, we're coming around.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is good. And then, a hot market is the 100,000 range. So
Always.
The featured house is 815 South 15th Street, listed for $99,900.
Yep.
And that is Todd's listing. So can
It
you
is.
tell us a little bit about it?
I hate calling a house cute, but this house is super, super, super cute on the inside. I mean, you just walk in and it feels like home. It's painted well, and part of it's decorated. It's decorated well. Everything's kept up well, and newer roof, newer flooring, newer water softener, newer water heater, newer furnace, all within the last 4 years. So it's had a lot of great things. It'd be a great place for a first-time home buyer.
Move in and hang your pictures up and call it a day.
And not worry about the water heater going out.
That's exactly right. And if it does, it's under warranty.
Correct.
It always seems to. We bought a house and the water heater went out the next day.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, so we're here with Josh Porter. Took over Fort Dodge Community School superintendent how long ago?
Just this last July, so
Yeah.
2023, right? July 1st of 2023.
And you were activities director before that?
Yeah, so I was athletic director for 2 years prior to that here.
Okay. Well, it's great having you back in town.
And great neighbor, right?
Great neighbors.
Great neighbor, right? Me and Todd are neighbors, if anybody didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
No throwing rocks at each other.
No, just have to deal with me in the hot tub in the middle of the night smoking cigars.
Neither one of us are hardly home, so
I know.
it's pretty dark.
Every once in a
It's a pretty
while.
dark corner.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
I did put permanent Christmas lights on the house. So
Yes.
we lighted up all kinds of different colors.
Brings a little attention to the area. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I love it. So can you share us a little bit about your journey and how you came from Fort Dodge, moved from Fort Dodge, all over the country, all where you went, then you came back. So
I kind of wish it was all over the country. That'd be a good experience, but it was a different journey, probably a little bit, So I graduated in '99 from Fort Dodge. I went out to Iowa Central. I wrestled out at Iowa Central for 2 years. I actually went to BV night school right here in Fort Dodge. I was going to be an elementary ed. So I enjoyed that. And then I was like, man, I really want to be a PE teacher, head wrestling coach. Ed Birnbaum was like a role model for me. That's who I wanted to be like.
Who also lives across the street.
Lives across the street from us as well. But was one of those guys, I'm like, I don't think I can teach science like he did. So I went and taught PE, the jack of all trades. So I taught PE, and I didn't realize how hard that degree was going to be to get at that point, because I actually have an exercise science degree, a bachelor's in exercise science.
Wow.
So it was pretty interesting. So then I went to Central College and got that because I knew I wanted to teach high school and go down that path. And so then I went to Clarinda. So Clarinda's in southwest Iowa. It's about 10 minutes from the Missouri border, 30 minutes from northwest.
Way down there.
30 minutes from Northwest Missouri State, who I would tell you might be one of the best D2 colleges you're going to find, at all.
Is that where our guest last week was at?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Played soccer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
So, we spent 14 years down there, met my wife down there. My wife's from Southwest Iowa. She's from Harlan. And then I always knew I wanted to come back. I had a desire to come back as the head wrestling coach and just teacher for a long time. But, obviously Bobby Thompson got in. I'd coached with Bobby Thompson a little bit back in the day before I moved. So, he's still here. He was a staple here as well. So that door didn't open up. So I got into administration. I was a middle school principal for a couple of years in Clarinda. Then I was a high school principal, athletic director for 4 years there. And it's about the size of Humboldt, so it was a little bit of an interesting setup.
Oh, yeah.
Busy. And then, the Fort Dodge athletic director job came open. It was one of those things where my daughter was a fifth grader, I think, or a fourth grader, and it was like, all right, all right, honey, it's now or never.
We're going home.
Yeah, we're either going home or we're staying in Clarinda forever because we love Clarinda. It was a great place. So we decided to come back. I've been here 2 years now, or this is my third year. My wife teaches high school health, and we just absolutely love it. So not a traditional Dodger herself. She's been here. She loves Fort Dodge. My family learned to love Taco Tico really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Have to.
Just have to. They even know what they want all the time now, so it's pretty good. And so she taught elementary PE forever, and then now teaches high school health, and she just absolutely loves it. And so
that's a big change. But yeah, I could see it.
I went to Drake. That's how I did. I moved here. I wasn't going to go to schooling. I wasn't getting my superintendent's license. I'm like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And then Matt Moritz and Stu Cochran met with me a couple of times. They're like, hey,
You'd be good at this.
you gonna do this and finish this? I'm like, I guess I am now.
Oh,
So Todd introduced you as traveling all over the world. Really, it's just all over Iowa.
All over Iowa.
Just all over Iowa a little bit. Oh yeah. And now we do travel all over Iowa because we have kids that play baseball and softball.
Oh yeah,
It's insane. We're everywhere.
We talked about this a little bit last week. When my kids were little, and it's not that they're that different. I guess my youngest is 24. My oldest is 31. We never did stuff like that. That just wasn't even in the cards. You weren't going to travel like this. And now all my friends are like, oh, yeah, we're taking the kids here. We're taking the kids there. We're going all over. One of them bought an RV just because he's like, I might as well have the big Class A so we can.
I tell my kids this story because it's just changed so much. But in the early to mid 90s, I wrestled at the YMCA in Fort Dodge, right downtown. Right by the pool, Jim Allison, Joe Shustak, a bunch of old school guys. They taught all of us, and that was like the hub, right?
Yep.
I won a state title. I played 4 sports. Everything was just fine. Didn't do any travel baseball. I remember one time I had to go to Ankeny for travel baseball. I thought, oh, this is cool. I went one time, one weekend.
Yeah.
Now my kid, one of my kids wrestles for Iowa Elite in town. The other one goes to Seabolt and Jefferson. We're traveling all over, going to Tulsa to wrestle. I never wrestled outside of Des Moines.
baseball was all through the Y.
Yes.
And I just saw the basketball on Facebook. Somebody put a old, the roster and like the stats and everything. I remember that in baseball because if you're in the top 5 of hitting or stealing bases or anything, it had the top 5 and then it had your schedule for the week, and it was awesome. And it's like we all went through the YMCA.
Yeah.
Everybody.
In the big debate is always like, is that what's best for youth sports? I don't even know if I know. I don't even think there's an answer anymore, right? Because like times have changed, things have changed.
College, they're getting paid. I'm Caitlin Clark. I paid
correct.
millions of dollars.
I'm sure she played on a good travel program, right? So it's just one of those. I don't know. I mean, you're just kind of a parent. You kind of dive into it, and if we weren't doing that, what would we do, right? I don't know. Sit home.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah,
we're never home either.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that you are here,
what
do you see as the future of Fort Dodge, and do you have any steps to achieve those goals?
Yeah, so taking over, obviously, I think everybody's probably pretty familiar with Fort Dodge schools. We great community, great support, great staff, hardworking teachers, paras. You go up and down our system, we just have some of the best individuals working for us. But our system's been tough, right? So I'm the 4th superintendent in 4 years. Dr. Ulrich was here for a couple years, and he's now at Iowa Central. So part of my plan and philosophy has been, hey, I'm going to stick through this through thick and thin, no matter what happens. That's why you hired me. I'm from Fort Dodge. I'm not leaving. I probably can't retire until I'm 57, 58 years old. So hopefully the school board wants to keep me around that long. I don't have a big desire. I got asked to speak at Shiny Top with one of the Rotary groups, and they're like, hey, what's any different? Why are you going to, what tells us you're not just going to leave next year? And I'm like, well, I'm not so sure the Waukees of the world want me anyway, and I'm not so sure I would want to be there. So, a lot of these people may change and believe that those are bigger and better jobs. I mean, I graduated from here. I loved being here. I loved it so much I went to Iowa Central, right?
Yep.
So I just don't have a huge desire to leave. I think it's a great place to raise your kids. So just creating stability is probably one of our most important things. And that's not just with me, right? Like hopefully you create something where if I left tomorrow that it would be sustainable and our admin would follow along. And so just really trying to change that narrative of probably Fort Dodge schools too, right? Like,
and I think in every position here, so many times it's a leapfrog.
Right.
They come to Fort Dodge, they take these positions here so they can leapfrog into something bigger and better. And it happens in City Hall. It happens in a lot of our jobs because it's easier to get a job like that here than it is other places. So having that stability and having that person that's going to stay forever. Yeah. And we've talked to Jesse too, and I'm like, now he's at Iowa Central. He goes, I'm never leaving. This was my dream job. This is where I always wanted to be.
But I love the fact that he stayed in the community. And you know, so the community is there.
Yep. And you have such a great partnership with Iowa Central anyways, with the college classes and all the other stuff at the high school. And like you were just saying a little bit ago, aligning spring breaks with Iowa Central is the best idea ever.
And ESAs last year from our government, the legislation's been really difficult on just education in general. But, you know, ESAs with private education, some people want to be like, oh, that creates barriers. I talk to Kate Stuckey at St. Ed's all the time. Like Leo is a buddy of mine, lives down the street. Like Lawfulness, where I live, that's a partnership. And so we're always trying to figure out ways to help each other and benefit each other. Obviously, we're always trying to take care of ourselves first. Yep. So all decisions are all about what's best for us. But if we don't have partnerships with St. Ed's or Iowa Central, we're foolish. I mean, we're a town of probably 24,000 now.
Yep. And we're trying to grow, but that's one of the ways we grow is have those partnerships and work together.
The better education that we can provide for public students and they can provide for the private, and then a pathway for secondary education at Iowa Central. I mean, if you love Fort Dodge and you don't want to leave, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so we love it here.
When I recruit people and we drive through the schools, St. Edmunds Senior High right there, I talk a lot about both of them. My wife graduated from Senior High. I graduated from St. Edmunds, so we know a little bit about both and just everything that I've learned. But I love the fact that I can tell them that they work together. Like if you go to one of the smaller schools, Senior High steps in and will help with, even in Iowa Central as well, with college courses. And then from sports, and our last guest played soccer at Senior High. Yep. So she went to St. Edmunds, was a Gale, but she was also a Dodger, and she was so proud to be both. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just, it's interesting. And so a lot of people would be like, oh, I bet you guys just hate those guys. I'm like, no, why would I hate them? Like, we got to work together. We got to work together and help each other out, or we're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah, it makes everybody better and everybody stronger.
Yeah. And so, looking forward and next steps, really this whole year has just been about what can we do to recruit, retain teachers and staff. Teachers are always our major focus because they are the ones that are with kids just the most. Not that everybody else isn't extremely important, but really what can I take off their plate? What can I do to make their jobs easier? We just were trying to find a way to get back into the classroom to where teachers teach. And you're teaching your subject or your area, and the behaviors are always going to be there. Behaviors have always been there, right? But now everything's about, let's add this shiny object or this shiny thing. So we've kind of really slimmed down a lot of the things we're doing. Our focus next year is all about literacy, helping our students be better readers.
That's awesome.
We know that kids that can read proficiently, grade level, are a better chance to graduate, better chance to go out into the public and do good service and within our community, better chance to go to college if they'd like to do that. Yeah. We just know that that's a top priority. That doesn't mean math, science, and all those things are important, but that's really going to be and I hope my goal is by August or September 1st, if you asked any staff member in our district, they would say the same thing. Like, great. And those are the things we're trying to get to. Yeah. Our kids are going to be able to be proficient readers.
Well, I tell you what, you're doing a great job because my 7-year-old granddaughter has her iPad and she texts. She has 4 people she can text, and I'm one of them. And she does an amazing job for a second grader at texting. I texted her the other day. She goes, I don't know what that word is. And I don't know.
Is that the school or is that Apple?
Oh, yeah. So, when she texts, we talked a little bit about this. She used predictive text, so she'll type in the first couple letters. And my son's like, I can't believe how fast she can get predictive text down. It's awesome.
Well, that's back to the other thing. Like, how do you use technology, right? That's how she's using technology to communicate. It's helping her expand. Now, if that's all she ever does, that might be a problem, assuming she'll read a book someday.
They read a book she reads a book to her dad every night.
Correct.
Yeah, she knows how to read pretty well. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. So do you think growing up in Fort Dodge changed your philosophy on education, or is it an overall worldwide thing that...
One of the things I've said, the toughest thing I ever did was leave Fort Dodge. Like I loved Fort Dodge, right? I mean, this was home. This is where I knew people. This is where people knew me. So to just go to college and leave Fort Dodge was difficult. But I also say the best thing I ever did was do that, right? I went to college for a couple years. I went and got an experience in another school community, not the same as Fort Dodge. Yeah. And then I've been able to maybe blend what I learned growing up with what I've learned going somewhere else at another place, and then bring it back to Fort Dodge.
Yep.
And so if your only experience is only ever one place, sometimes you get really stuck in what that looks like.
Yes.
It's hard to be creative, think outside the box. So I think that's extremely important. But one of the things is I think that helped me the most is I had such an appreciation for growing up in Fort Dodge. I mean, I can name so many people that were just great role models, great leaders. And maybe not for everybody, but at least for me, like they had an impact on me. They were supportive, but never really didn't really push me one way or the other. Just kind of helped me find my own way. And so I'm fortunate for those things. And then you go back and reflect and think about some of the coaches you had and teachers, and I'm like, well, yeah. I don't think we could do that anymore. It shouldn't probably be that way anymore. But like I learned something from them.
Oh, definitely,
Absolutely.
You learn something from people that do things really bad.
Yeah.
And isn't it cool, like, probably like Birnbaum,
right.
like 20 years later, you come back and then it's like you're a friend.
Yes. Yeah.
Or like, and then you said you're across the street from him. I'm sure you talk to him every once in a while, and it's like.
When I was deciding to get into administration, he was a middle school principal here. And he was the first one I called. I said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna be a middle school principal." He shared stuff with me. He helped me. That's
I can only imagine that conversation.
Yes. and I can a couple times he said, "Hey, he would try to get me to come back or try to find." He was influential in me coming back to be the AD.
Oh, I bet
you know. And my wife was kind of like, "Nah, our kids are here. We're staying. We're gonna stay in Clarinda." And I remember he called, and my wife's like, "Hey, don't answer it." I'm like, "Hey, sorry, honey. I always answer the call when Birnbaum calls me. I'm answering the phone." Yep. You know. So and Sam Mosier was my football coach. I mean, you're just not gonna find a better guy. Like we weren't great at football, but I just remember how he made me feel and how he treated us.
Yes.
And that was extremely important. So when I was in education, I had those examples. So when I was coaching, I was a head wrestling coach for 10 years, assistant football coach, and it helped me through those situations.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you are facing right now, or that you see that you're going to face here in the future? Yeah,
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just a teacher shortage and staff shortage. And so money helps. So you saw the recent legislation. Public school teachers are minimum 47.5, which is awesome for the community of Fort Dodge. 12-year veterans get $60,000 a year. So we're working on that model and what it looks like for us. But money doesn't solve all problems, right? So it's always nice to pay more. I was an advocate for the teaching pay portion, mainly because I think you guys would agree. If you can make $50,000 in Fort Dodge, Iowa, that's a pretty good living. And so to have someone come here as a teacher, they stick it out for 12 years, they're guaranteed to make $62,000 down the road. I mean, you're going to make a healthy living. You can raise a family, have a spouse. You can do you don't have to go get a second job and do things. So,
absolutely. And you don't want them to struggle because our teachers are so important. I mean, right. So important.
It reflects where our community is going and what it's going to do. I mean, if you have a school full of terrible teachers or mediocre teachers.
Yeah.
And my kids went through the same thing. We had one teacher, 1 year, it's an amazing teacher. The kids are doing great. The next year they get somebody who's just doesn't have the drive or I don't even want to say that, just doesn't have the
personality conflict.
Yeah. Easy. And all of a sudden you get into that and you're like, how did they do so good last year and so, mediocre this year, and how do we find a teacher for that? And you guys do a great job of picking out students and putting students and teachers together.
Yeah, try to match them up.
Yep. So,
and you've had a lot of teachers that have been there for a long time now, haven't you, too?
We have. And honestly, and I say that's our biggest struggle, but it's mainly because I don't think enough people are going into the teaching profession. And I'm assuming legislation, that's one of their pushes to hope that, hey, you can come out and you can make $50,000 as a teacher, not next year, but the year after. But we've had some really good hiring here early on. We've been able to fill some positions. If you see our post, it looks like a lot of positions. Some of them are getting closed off and getting done. But really, we've had a good hiring early on. The month of April and early May will be most important for us.
Awesome.
It's some of it also kind of perception. Teachers and students and education has gotten such a bad, kind of like law enforcement over the last 10 years.
Correct.
And how do you overcome that? Is it just like Fort Dodge trying to put all the stuff they have into making it better?
Well, right. And then if you don't know Fort Dodge at all and then you Google, it's not the best thing that you're going to see right away. So I always try to tell our staff, it's all about how you sell it, right? So I'm trying to be the best salesman I can be and talk about all the positives. And
that's why we do this.
Everything you can do. Like, hey, here's why I would come to Fort Dodge. Here's why it's awesome for your kids. I moved here. My kids went to Butler Elementary. Had a fantastic experience. Then they went to Cooper. great experience. Now they're at the middle school, great experience. So, you know, try to just sell those things. And, you know, when you're trying to sell people to buy a house here, it's very similar. We're trying to get people to come to our community and not just reflect. The bad things that happen are such a small percentage anyway.
It is. And it makes the front page or it makes the front thing. And you read the bad first.
The news,
you know,
messenger.
You would not believe how many people we recruit that say, oh my gosh, Fort Dodge really surprised us.
Correct.
Like they're looking at 3 or 4 towns. And then when they went through the companies that they were being recruited and then come with me and we go through, by the time they're with me, they're like, oh my gosh, this community is so much better than what we had originally anticipated.
People,
and they usually pick us.
Yeah, people come here. They come here for a couple of years and they're like, oh, I'm not leaving.
No, I'm staying.
That's how it works. So you got to get them here first. And that's what we'll call and recruit people. If there's someone that we think can be good for our system, if you're not doing that, I mean, you're a liar, one. Number two, what are you trying to do to improve your system, right? So if you're looking for someone or a high-level position or a director or administrator, you almost have to be on that recruiting end.
To be proactive all the time trying to find somebody.
Yeah.
So community involvement, I know you're always trying to get the community involved, and I even wrote on here parents because I remember, once again, when my kids were little, I went to the programs and their games sometimes. And, you know, that parental involvement is super important. I don't know if you know this. Deandra ended up at St. Ed's her last couple of years in school because she had some other stuff going on. And St. Ed's at that time was just, they had been pushing parental involvement more so than the high school did. Is the high school trying to get those parents into the classroom or involved with their kids' lives? Or
yeah, and you know, I think that's the hardest thing. It's one of the hardest challenges we have too. Is just we don't have any problem with community involvement. I could call you guys and be like, hey, we have this thing going on. You guys want to come in or give these kids this experience? You guys would come in. We would find a time. You'd make it work. So the businesses in town and community partners are outstanding, right? But that parent piece is really difficult. And as kids get older, it becomes more difficult. So we've really trying to be as creative as possible to try to get more parents to come in. But to be involved in your kids' education is almost just a thing of the past anymore. You know, it's just a very rare thing, and it's almost sad because at one time, if you messed up at school, it was not a good thing at home.
Oh, no.
I'm not so sure that's quite where we're at anymore. So anyway, parents, we're talking about how do we educate parents? How do we do education events for parents? Trying to do anything we can to bring kids in or bring parents in. We have tons of stuff. Some stuff is really popular. Our 9th grade orientation, we get almost all 9th grade parents in. So we try to take advantage of that and talk to them about the things that are happening. But once they're in high school, then it kind of goes off a little bit again, right? So
yeah, they're on their own. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about meeting people where they're at. You know, do we need to do a community event at, you know, the Olson Park Band Shell, you know, something like that instead? Do we need to go do something different like that? And how do we get to different segments of our community? Because as we all know, there's people that are extremely involved and then there's people that are not involved at all. So
correct.
What initiatives or programs have you implemented since you've been here in Fort Dodge?
Yeah, you know what? I've done more eliminating of programs since I've been in here, only because we just had so much stuff and it was just a lot. And when stuff is a lot for me, then it's a lot for Aaron Davidson, who's my assistant. Then it's a lot for admin, and then it's a lot for teachers. So we've just really have tried to take things away. The one thing we probably did is we did purchase new ELA curriculum, which was English Language Arts. And it actually is curriculum that is back to the science of reading to really get down. So which probably tells you why our initiative is all about student proficiency in reading and reading at grade level. So we're just trying to narrow our focus and just that's a big task. It was like $980,000 for this new curriculum.
Wow.
But we also eliminated a bunch of things. We had some opportunities to do it. This was the year to purchase it. So there'll be a lot of work and training around that as we move forward. Hopefully we do a lot in June to prepare for August. So
well, sometimes the best thing to do is simplify.
Correct. Yep.
That's what we
hope.
Go back to basics.
Yep.
You know, they say that in a big basketball game. You know, go back to basics and learn how to dribble, and maybe you can win a game.
Yep.
Do the little things right.
I can tell you, I have a few. You guys probably seen examples, but if you go watch our softball program, probably one of the best softball programs in the state of Iowa, right? Year in, year out, no matter who's in there, what the talent is. We have girls going to Iowa, girls going to other places. Bottom line, if you watch their practice, it's exactly what it is. You watch them warm up. It's the same thing every day. It's back to basics. They're rolling balls to each other. They're just working on the fundamental skills, and they do it at all levels. And that's why Pride has been pretty good too. They do the same thing there.
Yep.
And so almost as a school district, we do the same thing. I coach youth baseball for my kid. They're 11 years old. We do basics every day. We have to.
Yeah, you have to remember that little thing. You have to do it right over and over and over again.
Right. Everybody
Then
wants
it
to hit the ball in the
becomes
park. Everybody wants to hit the ball in the park. Everybody wants to field the ball perfect every time. But if you don't do the other stuff, it's not going to happen.
Did I hear Caitlin Clark shoots 100 free throws a day, 100 layups a day, and 100 three-pointers a day?
Correct.
Yeah,
It's like 300 plus shots a day.
Yeah. And that's why she can hit it from the logo.
Correct.
Well, I saw a thing that if you practice anything for 18 minutes a day, then you'll probably be in the top 95% of that field.
Correct.
So if it's like piano or whatever.
Yep. It makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah, it does. You got to do it over and over.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite new inventions is GPT and AI. How is the school dealing with that technology?
You know, it's interesting. My English department at the high school probably isn't overly excited about it. I've been kind of encouraged, like, hey, let's just find ways to work with it, right? It is us. It's part of our system. It's available. I'm not so sure
It's
how
hard to fight it.
how you're going to fight it at all. You know, obviously they do not want you putting in there Huckleberry Finn and having it write you a whole paper on Huckleberry Finn for you. But
I had it write me a paper on blockchain the other day just so I could understand it better.
Yeah, see? So we're trying to use it, incorporate it. We have a couple staff at the high school that are really excelling. I think they did like a small work session with other teachers on how to use ChatGPT in the classroom and how to integrate it. And I think if you can, you know, with kids, it's like anything, right? You have to give a little bit to get a little bit. And if you just try to, we're going to do X, Y, Z, like these are the rules, like we're not wavering from them, then they're going to either not use it and it's going to be awful, or they're going to use it and try to cheat the system. So it's part of just working with people and trying to figure out what is best. It's new for everybody. I use it on things. There's times where we have certain things that we're trying to figure out. I had to do a presentation for a conference, and I'm like, I need a little bit more material. What can I find? I mean, so, and we're foolish to not think that everybody across the world's not using this now.
Everybody is.
You talk to people, they're like, I tried it the other day, and it's pretty cool, and it'll answer text messages for me if I want it to.
Yeah.
Well, and anybody putting brochures together, or you don't want to forget something, you just put in all the information and just see what it looks like, and then you look at it and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah,
I wish I would have thought of all of that.
Looks pretty good. Technology can be
it in there.
Technology is your best friend and your worst enemy, right? And we see that on social media and through things there. So any way we can learn to use it as a tool for instruction and not instruction is good. So we tried to teach kids to use it as a tool to help your learning, but not be your learning. So
and it really is going to change the world. I mean, all of a sudden, people aren't going to spend hours and hours writing. Certain people will. But you can all of a sudden take a lot of that work and put it on that and actually concentrate on other stuff, which it's kind of weird how, maybe we'll have this discussion in 10 years and say, this is how
see how it's going.
Yeah, this is how it changed the world.
Maybe I won't even be here. I'll just send it to you through ChatGPT.
Yeah. You see Arnold come up. Have you seen this boy? And
So with all that being said, do you learn a lot from the students themselves?
Yeah, one of the things that I just really wanted to do as a superintendent my first year, and probably every year, was just make sure I was visible and present. So I'm in buildings almost every day. I'm around kids all the time. Excuse me. Sometimes I have a lot of the one thing that changes from just being a regular administrator to superintendent is you have lunch meetings, you have different things, and different people ask you to do different stuff for them. But I try to have lunch in buildings at least 3 to 4 days a week. So I'm not there to eat with you guys or anybody else. I go eat with the kids. So I'll go to ECC and eat. Some lunches are really good. Some are not so great, but Tahoe Food Service
never changed.
Tahoe Food Service is who we use, and they're phenomenal. So, but I go to every building. I usually say hi to admin, walk around a little bit. Teachers have been awesome. I just walk into classes, see how things are going. Now kids are starting to be like, oh, hey, there's Mr. Porter. Hey, you're the guy that calls off school. You're the snow guy. Now I'm getting emails from high school kids saying, hey, looks really bad tomorrow. Probably not safe to drive. And then,
I love how you said that because I knew some high school kids when Jesse was there.
Yeah.
And they told me how cool he was. Yeah. And they would hit him up on Facebook or whatever, and he would always mess back with them, in like a good, playful way. But that's so good to see the superintendent interacting, and then even on social media to like see that interaction.
Just some engagement really cool with the kids, and so The kids are why you get into education, right? It's all about kids, and they're the number one. It's the most important thing we do is educate kids. So if you can't go and work with kids and get along with kids and joke with them a little bit, or say hi, or talk about the game or the play or something that happened the night before, I would question why you're in education just a little bit.
And then also I could see, like, if you're like stern and these are the policies and this is the way we're going, if you don't listen to the kids ever,
right.
It can't move forward. You got to keep them happy too.
It's really hard for adults, but kids are pretty smart, and they do have some really good ideas, and they will find inequities within your system if they can find them. And so sometimes you listen, and sometimes you're like, "No, you're crazy. We're not doing that." Like, hey, Mr. Porter's got a hard line on this one, but I'll listen to that. Like, we can talk through that, what it looks like. So.
All right, so let's move on to everybody's least favorite subject in education is school safety. Yeah. We've had some stuff happen in the last week or two that, it kind of brought a light to it. We were talking before the podcast about this bomb threat that came from Mexico and how impressed we are. 10 minutes after it came out, there were 15 police officers.
Right. Already. Scares the heck out of everybody, by the way.
Oh,
no matter what.
Yeah. So what do you do for what programs, what issues with school safety? I mean, how do you make parents feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think the most important responsibility we have is to keep kids safe. No one wants to send their kid to school and not think that their kid will be safe. So it's really sad because 20 years ago we hardly talked about it, and we all went to school every day, and we just assumed you're going to be safe at school. Well, now it's one of those things where school shootings across America are at all-time high. We have threats that are coming across. So I always say school safety, just that safety and mental stability to know that you're going to be safe when you're there is the most important thing that you can provide for families. And then you educate them, right? So it's got to be a step process. I will say that the hiring of Roger Porter, we made some adjustments. He's a former police chief. He wanted to continue to work. We found an opportunity to bring him into our system. The reason some of that, like those law enforcement officers were there so quick, as soon as the threat was on Facebook, as soon as someone notified our admin, he was notified. He was at the building within probably 2 minutes. We had a plan in place. He had a plan in place. He had law enforcement called. Now, it was non-creditable, which was a really nice word to put out there when you can communicate with people. Hey, it's non-credible. It's what they call swatting now, right? When you can do those things, that calms it a little bit. But then we got all of our law enforcement there. We still swept the building. We did some things. So the ability to have him to be flexible. So we used to have an SRO at the middle school and high school, which is a school resource officer. Now we have Roger, but we only have one SRO. But ultimately, Roger's able to serve all of our buildings. He's able to do all the communication with the sheriff's department and the local police department. He has great relationships with them.
He's got all the connections.
Yep. We have SRP, which is School Response Protocol. It's by I Love You Guys Foundation. I'm gonna draw a blank now, but there was a shooting in Colorado a long time ago, and this guy created this foundation. So it's really standard. They provide it free to schools. We use it. We train our kids. So unfortunately, we're just at a time where you always practice fire drills, right? You always practice tornado. Well, now we're probably always practicing lockdown drills.
Right.
We're always practicing what it looks like in the case of a bomb threat. Now they teach you to what do you do if a tanker truck full of chemicals falls over in front of the middle school? Like,
boy.
Right, because that can happen, right? I mean,
and you got to think about those things, and if you don't have a plan and you haven't thought about it.
Think about going to the road by the roundabout.
The train tracks are closed. The train could crash.
Well, they had that.
Yeah, I mean, anything
cement truck tipped over on that roundabout. Did you ever see that? I got pictures of it. I drove by. There's a cement truck sideways. So it could have been a tanker truck. It could have been anything. And what?
It could be anything. So now we're just preparing kids for all situations. I feel like we're way ahead of the game in comparison to a lot of schools. A lot of schools are a little bit nervous about jumping in. Roger's redone all of our protocols. He's helped secretaries with their communication. We have buttons where you just hit a button and the whole building goes locked down. We have communication radios. He sends out one call, goes to all law enforcement, just like that. So we're trying to speed it up. You hope it never happens, but you want to be prepared for the worst.
If it does.
Yep.
Yep.
And so
plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yep. I was going to say that.
He beat you to it this time.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He doesn't beat me very often.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
Well, reflecting on all your time in education, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned?
Oh man, that's a good question. I've learned a lot of lessons. You really only learn if you make mistakes, right? And so
made a lot of mistakes.
And whether anybody else has seen it or noticed, I've made lots of mistakes in my first 7 months on the job as a superintendent too. So what you do is you try to get Eric Pratt to put the positive things out that you're doing, and then he hides all my mistakes and no one can see them. So
I love that.
Oh yeah, I learned really fast, and I don't know if it was because of my upbringing in Fort Dodge or being a student here and then now working here and in other places. I'm really quick not to judge, and people are just so quick to judge a decision a teacher makes, how a parent's acting. So I try to be really patient and calm. And there was a time in me where I was a wrestling coach or a football coach, and I was pretty intense, and I could get after people pretty good. And I still can do that if I have to, but really it's more about just being calm in really crappy situations, right? Like you have this threat come across. What are you going to do? Well, if I freak out and you guys are working for me, you're going to freak out too.
That's what's going to,
they're looking at you.
Yes. They're looking for that. So the more calm I can be, and just really working with people, we deal with some difficult parents. We deal with some difficult staff. So as much as I'd like to lose my mind or be really pissed about stuff, at the end of the day, it's just a waste of my breath, right? So you try to meet them where they're at, try to help them, try to find a way to move forward all the time. I try not to reflect too much on the past or what happened before. If we make a mistake and someone does something wrong, figure out how to fix it so you don't happen again. And, you just go about that system, and no system's perfect, right? So. No. We always try to do the best we can. I always say we're always trying to make the best decisions we can. Probably what I've learned most in this seat in 6-7 months is if I don't make a decision, sometimes nobody's going to make a decision. So, and if the longer I wait to make a decision, the longer everybody else is waiting for my decision. So there's some things where I've just learned how, hey, all right, we need to pause, maybe look into this one a little bit. Other ones I'm like, hey, this might be right or wrong, but this is what we're going to go with.
Yeah, make the decision, and then 3 months later change it if you have to. If you need to adapt, change.
Most people that don't like it, at least, are appreciative that you made a decision and you helped it move forward.
It's not limbo anymore.
Correct. Yeah. They're not waiting on you and figuring out what's right and what's wrong.
We can just move forward.
Correct.
So long term, 5, 10, 20 years. Yeah. You said you're sticking with us for the long term.
Heck yes.
I know you talked about literacy being a goal. What other goals do you have for the school district?
Yeah, I'll be totally transparent. When we met with staff, we said it may take us 3-4 years to get up. I mean, we would like to be 80% proficient. That's a lofty goal. There's hardly any schools that are 80% proficient, so that may take a while. But you know what? I think just changing that narrative that Fort Dodge public school is a great place to be. It's a place you can thrive, you can graduate. I think most people know that, or if you've had kids go through or you live here. But just understanding that we're doing everything we can. We're fair to everybody. We're equitable to everybody. We try to make sure everybody is treated right. I think changing that narrative of what public school is and then Fort Dodge Public School would be a long-term goal, and it's lofty, right? I mean, It's a big goal. It's a big goal, and so when you're trying to change the mindset and culture of people that have been around for a long time, or just understanding that everybody can be successful. So we just get these pockets of kids sometimes where like, he needs to learn how to weld. Well, maybe he doesn't want to learn how to weld.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything. Like, just trying to change that narrative that everybody, I think people believe it, or teachers believe that everybody can learn and everybody can be successful, but I don't know if we truly all as a system believe that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I know if you had our broker, Jim Kesterson, go into the welding room and you told him he had to weld, he'd just laugh in your face and I don't pick up a hammer.
This isn't going to happen.
Right.
Take me to the business room.
Yeah, right.
We'll figure it out there.
Right.
Any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to kind of wrap up with? This has been a great conversation. It's been a lot of fun to have you here. You can come back anytime you want.
Thanks, guys. I don't have a lot of problems talking usually. I don't like to talk about myself a ton, but talking about Fort Dodge schools, I enjoy that, and our community. It's a great community, and the support that I've gotten from my position, and the support we have for others. Like I said, I'm with you guys. I hope we can find ways to grow, be super creative. And just make Fort Dodge just a special place for everybody. If you're here, you already think it's pretty special.
You already know.
You already know that.
And I think it starts with the Fort Dodge School.
It does.
I really do.
Yep.
Well, and it's been such a team effort. And we're going to have Astra on here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Dennis Plott's a good friend of mine. everybody has been working towards the same goal of changing perspective about what Fort Dodge is. And that's why we started this podcast. I mean, somebody had to be out there to podcast say, no, you really want to come check this town out.
Well, I say over and over again, when we're recruiting people, we're giving tours. Everybody's like, I already said it. They're just so surprised by our community. And it's like, we need to do like a talk show or something because every time we get people toured, they love it.
Yep.
And
that's what I say all the time. I'll get a message or something. I'll be like, hey, just call me. Here's my cell phone number. I know I'm the superintendent. Don't usually give your cell number out, but I'm like, hey, come on a Saturday morning. I'll take you around town. I'll take you around our school. I'll take you wherever we need to. I say we can be our best advocate, but we can also be our worst enemy. Because, I mean, as you guys probably know, as soon as something bad happens, KCCI is not here. Someone tipped it to them.
Correct.
And it was someone right here in our system. So it's like, hey, guys. Like, why do that to ourselves?
What's his name? Roger, the Channel 13 guy. I can't even think of his last name right now, but he was across the street from Shiny Top. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So, of course, I walk over there. I'm like, so you're doing a feel-good piece on Fort Dodge? He goes, well, do you have one? I'm like, I have 40. So just let me know if you want something good.
Correct.
I got you. You don't have to show up just when it's, something awful. So.
Right. They came. We did that staff bonus. We were able to do a staff bonus for everybody. KCCI came and they're like, man, it's just so awesome to come do something positive. Yeah. And I said, hey, it's so awesome that you came here for something positive, but we have a lot of positive things. So I have Lydia Scher. She's our new director of communication or communications gal. But I'm like, if there's something positive, send that to them. Tell them to
keep sending every day.
Jump on anything. Like we'll take it. We'll use it. And so I think that's how we change the narrative.
Brainwash them one at a time.
Yep,
and know who to hit.
Keep putting the good stories out there.
Yeah.
Good job.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us today. This was a whole lot of fun.
Guys.
And you're welcome anytime. That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of two lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiah Condon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.